got a lost muscle car, we'll find it.
My name is Wes Eisenschenk. I created an online community for people searching for their long-lost muscle cars. On this video podcast series, I'll talk to desperate car lovers about how their favorite rides went missing, and with your help and our vast network of internet gearhead sleuths, hopefully we can track down some answers. Buckle up for surprising stories, shocking reveals, and some epic owner car reunions. Welcome to another edition, guys and girls, of Lost and Found Muscle Cars. I am your host, Wes Eisenschenk, founder of the Facebook page Lost Muscle Cars, author of the book Lost Muscle Cars, and you are watching on YouTube. Please click like and subscribe. We're going to want to hear what you have to say about this episode. We got a very special guest today, and I'm going to tell you right off the top, this is our first success story that we're going to be covering on Lost and Found Muscle Cars. We have Chris Jackson. And Chris, what is behind you?
This is my first vehicle. My Uncle Joe bought my 57 Chevy. He bought for me when I was in high school. I was 16 years old. I saw this truck riding with my mom. First time I seen it was in Bernice, Louisiana. I told her, I said, that's the truck I want. And I've never seen anything like that. We saw it again, and she told me she stopped at the store and saw the owner and asked, was it for sale and how much? And she went then and told my Uncle Joe, and he bought it for me. And I caught off the school bus one day, and my uncle and my dad was sitting in the swing set in front of the house. And I thought that was odd, but I walked down there and said, what are you guys doing? And they both turned and looked over their right shoulder, and the truck was sitting beside the house. And I just, my mouth dropped open, and I'm like, wow, there it is. So it was a surprise.
A 16-year-old kid. I put myself back in that moment, and I can just feel it right now. I can just feel my first car again. But
Yep.
this is a truck to you. And did you do stuff right away to personalize it and make it your own?
I installed a stereo, but everything else was pretty much the way I wanted it. And I don't think really they knew what it was at the time, because that truck was probably the fastest truck in North Louisiana. And as I proved later on.
Did you get cozy with local law enforcement? Did they know who Chris Jackson was after a while?
Yes, they did. They even told my wife after we went back down there that I caused all their gray hairs.
That sounds exactly like a 16-year-old kid. So you have this pickup. You're in high school. You're probably taking your buddies out and whatnot, and you're having fun. And how long did you own this truck? So let's start in 1985 with your ownership. And when was the last time you had this truck?
1987, I left to go to UTI in Houston, Texas. And I probably had it for 2 years. So I left. And while I was gone, my mom and dad decided to sell the truck, I guess in fear of thinking I was going to go to jail or get hurt or go to worse, get killed in it. And they thought they was doing the right thing. And so I had it for 2 years.
So here you are, you're gone, you're at UTI, and at some point you come back and you find out your truck has been sold.
Yep.
And tell me about how that made you feel. I mean, that must have knocked you right between the ribs.
Yeah, it did. It was a little heartbreaking. But you know, life was starting for me at that time, and I got a job and started traveling. So, you know, it was kind of like out of sight, out of mind. But I was still thinking about it. But
So at this point, are you finding a wife, getting married, starting a family, and a little, bench seat pickup's not gonna get it done with the family, right?
that's right.
Yeah. So here you are, the truck's gone. It's the early 90s. You're kind of out of sight, out of mind with the pickup. When did you kind of pick that vibe back up? Like, man, whatever happened to my old pickup?
Right. It was always in the back of my mind. My wife and I got married in 1991. And I remember telling her the stories about the truck. And one of the things that I remember is telling her, I wish you could have rode in that truck with me. And,
Oh,
back then we didn't have cell phones and smartphones, and I didn't have the internet. So no social media. So the networking was only as close as your friend group was. So and I always reached out and said, hey, if you ever see or hear of the truck, I'd like to get it back. Later on, as Facebook came about, I would post that one picture with me standing in front of the church. That's which the only picture I have or had at the truck at the time. And I would post on Facebook, hey, if you, I'm still looking. If you know where it is, and that was years later. Over the last probably 10 or 15 years, I posted it 5 or 6 times, but not really thinking I would ever find it.
so this brings us to Lost Muscle Cars, and Chris, you've been posting this everywhere else in between, and we've grown our community. So you got a pretty good audience, but still, you didn't have a serial number, which is pretty much that's kind of the death knell for these cars. If you don't
Right.
have some sort of paperwork, you're up blank creek. But
Yep.
somehow, some way, all the stars align. Walk us through your post, and then walk us through the responses.
Okay. So I was scrolling Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and your page, Lost Muscle Cars, came across my feed. So I looked at it and scrolled down and read some of the stories, and I'm like, this is the platform that might turn up something. So, again, this was another a long shot. So I submitted my story, and it got published. And I can't believe the last time I checked, it was at 3,060 shares. And I was going to go back and try to find how many states it went through, but it went all across the United States. I know that. And I had somebody text me from England that said congratulations. But I had a lot of friends commenting on that post. But the fourth day was the important day. A guy saw it and he messaged me on that site and said, "What was your dad's name? That looks like my truck." And so I messaged him privately and we talked. And he said, "Yeah, I bought that truck from your dad and he raced it a couple of years and he sold it to a guy in Arkansas and he told me a name. And all we had was a name and a town." And
Oh,
started hitting the keys on the computer trying to find it. Me and a buddy found he was in Arkansas. He looked at Google Maps and found his address, looked at
wow.
his house and seen all the cars. We looked at an aerial view, couldn't find the truck though. But through looking on the internet, trying to find, we had a name and a town, we would get these reports where if you pay $3.99 extra, you'll get the rest of the report. But it had some possible phone numbers. So I went home and called all of the phone numbers. I even called the police department. I called the town hall. Everybody knows everybody's a small town. And they said, yeah, we'll get your phone number to him. But right about that time when I was making those phone calls, I got a message from a buddy of mine. He was helping me look that stuff up. And he sent me a picture and it was my truck behind his house. I'm like, what? That's my truck. And I got chills. So I'm like, how did you do that? He said he went to the next door neighbor's house, panned left and zoomed in, and there it was. But that was a 9-year-old photo. So I'm like, well, that's the closest I've seen my truck in like 34 years. So finally got my message and we spoke on the phone and he heard my story. And he asked me, he said, so what is it going to take? What would you give for it? And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's kind of not fair since you know my story now. So I knew I had to be serious. So I'm like, you know what? Would you take 10 grand for it? And my wife immediately looks at me with her eyes big and like, how are you going to come up with 10 grand? And I'm thinking, I'll sell my 57 Chevy if I have to. I don't care. So we talked and he says, man, let me think about it. I'm going to talk to my wife and I'll let you know. So that was a Thursday. Friday came and gone, no phone call. Saturday came, and I'm like, I'm sitting there biting at the bits, you know what I mean? And
Yeah, you're sweating the armpits a little.
yeah, so at 3 o'clock Saturday, I decided, you know what, I'm going to call him. So I called him, and we talked a minute, and he says, you know what, I'm going to let you get your truck back. He said something about your story touched him in his heart, and he said, I'm going to let you get your truck back. And I'm like, so are we going to do it like we discussed? We're going to do the 10 grand. And he goes, no, the truck's not for sale. He said, but we can horse trade. I'm like, well, what do you have in mind? And I guess he had looked at my profile and seen I had a yellow 57 Chevy 210, which was nice. 4-speed, 9-inch rear end, the whole 9 yards. And he's like, would you trade that for it? I'm like, done. When can we come get my truck? I didn't even hesitate. So I know my truck, financially, that was probably not a smart move, but emotionally, I couldn't have asked for anything better.
Yeah, that's just, I mean, you touched on so many things here, Chris, in that last couple minutes. And the one thing that really jumps out to me too is the networking. I mean, once your friends knew you were on to something and how
Yeah,
much they all helped you to get to that finish line, that's incredible. I mean, and that's, this Lost Muscle Cars community has always been about that. It's always been about how can I help?
right,
Little things like Google Earth, Google Street View, driving by. I mean, like you said, the oldest Google Earth sometimes the street views are 9 years old. They're five
yeah,
years old. And man, I tell you, there was one time I was looking at a Shelby Mustang, and I'm looking 2005, 2009, 2012, and boom, it's gone. Right, the next one, it's gone, and you start
right,
freaking out. But here's your friend, and he's got the camera angle that shows the truck sitting back there.
right.
Unreal, unreal. And those moments that hit you, you have the one of where you are 100% sure now that's the truck. It's in the backyard or wherever it was. And now you have that next moment. How can I purchase it? And can I purchase it? And that's an uphill. That's a sleepless night thing. That's a
What?
sweaty armpits, man. You just waiting to hear. And I don't blame you. Sometimes you got to make that phone call just to poke the bear a little bit.
Well, we were too close. I had to go through with it.
Yeah, and honestly, and with your wife saying, let's not take out a big loan or do this for 10 grand, and to be able just to swap vehicles. You're not out anything other than the trade value, but
Yep.
honestly, you're filling in that trade value with emotional value, and that's priceless.
Yes, it is.
Priceless. So talk to us. You go to pick up the truck and you're driving down that road and you see it at the end. And this thing isn't next door. You got to go get this thing. Where is it?
Oh yeah. So I'm in North Carolina, and it's in Arkansas. My hometown is Bernice, Louisiana. So it's a 14-hour ride. So we loaded the car up on a trailer and we took off. But one of the cool things is one of my best friends that probably was the last guy that rode with me in the truck, Lance. He went with me and my wife to go get this car. So it was uh, it was a moment.
Absolutely. Oh man, and I tell you what, while you're driving there, you got the 57 on the back trailer. Are you thinking at any time, what if he backs out of this deal?
Yeah, all the things are going through your mind. It's like that's a
Yeah.
long trip, but I'm like, at least I would get to see it. But after talking to him on the phone, I think the deal was done.
You
I,
felt good
I
about it.
felt like
Good.
when I walked, we seen the truck. It was like everything, all the emotions. You know what I mean? So when I got out, it was like we were old friends. We hugged and we started talking and looking at the truck, and um, I backed the car off the trailer and moved it over into his driveway, and I handed him the keys. We were over still by the truck, and I was trying to tell him about the car, and he was like, it doesn't matter. Whatever the car needs, I'll do it. And it was all about getting me the truck back, and that he felt it too. So he was in on it.
There's something about that in the hobby that we all share together. It's one thing if the truck's been restored and it's been his truck and he's loved it for 25 years, and it's one thing. It's it's another completely when it's a project vehicle
Right.
and you see somebody else who has that yearning for it, and it just I'm sure you're just exuding happiness, emotion when you see it. And he sees that and he just knows, hey, this is meant to be. This thing needs to go back to Chris.
And we're friends for life now too. He's got my contact information, and I got his, and he wants to see the whole thing be rebuilt, and he'll get to see that as well.
What's the long term plans now that you got the pickup back, Chris?
Long term plans. Hopefully, it's not going to be long term, but by myself with a few friends working on it. My goal is the Hot Rod Power Tour 2025. If I don't make 2025, it'll definitely be 2026. Guaranteed.
Gotcha. So is this going to be a part modern update, or is it straight a nostalgia build?
No, I think she deserves to be a little bit better than she has been in the past. I'm going to update the suspension. I'm going to update the engine. It's already got the transmission, the one that I would have wanted. But the seat will get done, paint job, the whole 9 yards. She'll be magazine ready.
Can you take your camera and show us the truck?
All right.
Take a look at this, folks. This is Chris's 57 Chevy pickup. Chris has been looking for this for nearly 25 years, and he reached out to us here on Lost and Found Muscle Cars, and by a miracle, he created a post, and we were able to help him locate this vehicle, and it was just because of people who watched this show. Look at this pickup. Man, Chris, step side. We got the old flames still popping out at us. Look at the patina on this truck. But guess what, folks? That patina is going away. Chris is going to give this truck exactly what it deserves, a brand new clean slate. So Chris, show us a couple of things that were hard confirmations on this was your truck.
Well, definitely these flames. During that first picture that Dave sent me from Google Maps, definitely knew that was my truck.
Very cool. And are those the same wheels you had on it?
Exactly the same wheels. This truck, the only thing has changed was the engine and the transmission. How does something stay that pure all these years?
Did you find any little candy wrappers or anything that you had that slipped through the seats? Or oh, he's got it on a dollies. Nice.
Just the way I left it. And I've already started taking it apart, so I had to put the door back on for this video.
Yeah, on the driver's side. Yeah, that's cool.
Did you see that? That was the door.
That's it. That was the identifier.
Same bench seat, same steering wheel. They changed the shifter and the transmission. That was it. And the engine.
Yeah.
Original was green, but when I got it, it was this blue. It had a light blue interior paint and a medium blue outside. Same diamond plate. That's another tale that it was mine. It had a diamond plate for the rear instead of the slats, but I'm putting the wood slats in.
Man, look at that time machine. Thank you to all of our committed gearheads and fans out there of Lost and Found Muscle Cars. You know what? Chris's story was great. Drop us a like. Also, tell us a little bit about his truck. What should he do to it? You guys are the impetus for why I do this show. Now, here's the last thing. If there is a car out there that's missing, get in touch with us because we will find it. Until next time, I'm Wes Eisenschenk. See you down the road.
My name is Chris Jackson, and you're watching Lost and Found Muscle Cars. And guess what? I found my first vehicle, 57 Chevy Truck.